The Grand Archive hummed with anticipation as High Chronicler Vexith spread his 3 manipulator appendages across the sacred viewing sphere. After 17,000 cycles of waiting, the prophecy was finally, gloriously, about to be fulfilled. "They come," squeaked Junior Archivist Plyn, her eye stalks quivering with barely contained excitement. "The Fire Tamers approach our system." Vexith felt his chromatophores flush deep purple with pride. The ancient texts had been explicit. Brutally, horrifyingly explicit. The beings who could bend flame to their will, who could summon infernos with mere thought, who had conquered the very essence of combustion itself, were arriving. Finally, the Velkari people would have the warriors they needed to defeat the Dreadlords of Crithan V. "Summon the Council of Elders," Vexith commanded, his voice resonating through the chamber's acoustic enhancers. "Alert the military divisions. Prepare the ceremonial weapons vault. Today, we meet our salvation." Plyn scurried off, leaving Vexith alone with the prophecy tablet. He read it again, just to be sure. The symbols were unmistakable. From beyond the spiral arm, the ones who tamed fire shall arrive. Where they walk, flames dance at their command. They carry the essence of stars themselves. Tremble, enemies of the chosen, for the Firebringers show no mercy. Pretty straightforward, really. Terrifying fire gods were coming to save them. What could possibly go wrong? 3 solar hours later, the first human ship descended through Velkari Prime's atmosphere. Commander Webb stepped off the landing ramp, took a deep breath of the alien air, and immediately sneezed. "Pollen count must be insane here," he muttered, wiping his nose. Behind him, the rest of the Federation Exploratory Corps filed out, stretching and yawning after the long journey. Lieutenant Sophia Ramirez was already scanning the welcoming committee with undisguised amusement. "Boss, I think they're expecting someone else. Look at them. They're doing that thing where they're trying really hard not to look disappointed." She wasn't wrong. The assembled Velkari dignitaries, resplendent in their ceremonial armor and carrying what appeared to be very heavy, very ornate weapons, stood frozen in various states of confusion. High Chronicler Vexith's eye stalks drooped noticeably. "Greetings, mighty Fire Tamers." Vexith called out, his translator unit struggling slightly with the enthusiasm he was desperately trying to maintain. "We have awaited your arrival for millennia. The prophecy spoke of your terrible power, your mastery over the flames of creation, he trailed off as he watched one of the humans, a shorter fellow with an impressive beard, pull something from his backpack. The human struck it against a rough surface, and a small flame appeared at the end of a tiny stick. "Anyone else need a light?" the bearded human called out, completely oblivious to the stunned silence that had fallen over the Velkari. Private Jake Morrison, the bearded wonder in question, used his match to light a cigarette, shook the match out, and tossed it into a nearby designated waste receptacle with the casual grace of someone who had done this exact action roughly 10,000 times. He exhaled a cloud of smoke and noticed everyone staring at him. "What?" he asked, looking genuinely confused. "No smoking zone? My bad. I can put it out." Vexith's translator made a sound that could only be described as electronic choking. His chromatophores cycled through 17 different colors in rapid succession, none of them associated with positive emotions. "That," Vexith said slowly, pointing one quivering appendage at the cigarette, "that is your fire magic? A tiny flame on a wooden stick? That you then extinguish?" Commander Webb stepped forward, diplomatic smile firmly in place. "I'm sorry, there seems to be some confusion. I'm Commander Marcus Webb of the United Earth Federation. We received your long-range transmission about first contact and came to establish diplomatic relations. We're explorers, scientists, cultural liaisons. We're here to be friends." The word friends seemed to physically pain Vexith. His whole body sagged. But the prophecy," Plyn whispered, her voice units barely functioning. "The ancient texts. The Fire Tamers who conquered flame itself. Who carry the essence of stars. Who bring infernos wherever they walk." Lieutenant Ramirez snorted. "Oh, that's hilarious. They found our camping tutorials. Boss, remember when we uploaded that whole database about human recreation to the Galactic Commons network? Someone translated making campfires into whatever passes for ancient prophecy language around here." Technician Aaron Kirst, who had been quietly setting up their base equipment, looked up with interest. "Wait, so they think we're fire gods because we know how to make esmores?" "Apparently," Webb said, rubbing his temples. "This is going to be a very long diplomatic mission." Elder Counselor Thryx, who had been silent until now, suddenly pushed through the crowd. Unlike the others, his chromatophores glowed a deep, calculating red. "Wait. The transmission we received. The humans spoke of taming fire for cooking, for warmth, for light, for forging metals, for powering great machines. Is this not true?" Webb nodded carefully. "Well, yes. Fire has been fundamental to human civilization for hundreds of thousands of years. We use controlled combustion for everything from cooking food to powering spacecraft. But we're not magic fire beings. It's just, technology. And matches. Very basic chemistry." Thryx's eye stalks extended to their maximum length. "You power your star vessels with controlled fire?" Technically, controlled explosions in most cases, but yes, the principle is similar. And you have done this for how long? In terms of controlled fire use? About 400,000 years, give or take. The silence that followed was profound. It was the kind of silence that occurs when an entire civilization's worldview is simultaneously shattered and rebuilt within the span of 30 seconds. THRWX turned slowly to face Vexith. High Chronicler. They have mastered flame for 400,000 cycles. We cannot make fire at all. We can barely understand the concept. The Dreadlords of Crithan V destroyed our last thermal research facility 3 seasons ago. These humans may not be gods, but they are exactly what the prophecy described. But they're so, Vexith gestured helplessly at Morrison, who had finished his cigarette and was now offering chewing gum to anyone who wanted it, casual about it. Of course they are casual. THRWX's voice rose to a pitch that made the translator crackle. They have been doing it for 400,000 cycles. We have been waiting 17,000 cycles for someone who could help us understand fire, and the universe sends us beings who literally cannot remember a time when their species did not control it. Commander Webb was beginning to understand the situation. Okay, let me get this straight. You need help with fire-based technology, and the prophecy said someone would come who had mastered it? Not just mastered, Plynn said, pulling out her datapad with trembling appendages. The texts say they carry the essence of stars themselves. We thought it was metaphorical. Lieutenant Ramirez had pulled out her own portable fusion battery and was checking their power levels. She held it up. Fusion power. Literal star essence technology. We've been using it for about 3 centuries now. It's how we got here. Morrison, still completely oblivious to the theological crisis he had triggered, piped up again. Hey Commander, where do you want me to set up the portable stove? I'm thinking we should make dinner for everyone. Show them some human hospitality. Nothing breaks the ice like good food, right? To make food, added Morrison, as if this clarified everything. It did not clarify anything. THRWX, however, had moved past terror and straight into desperate hope. High Chronicler Vexith, the prophecy never said the Fire Tamers would be warriors. That was our interpretation. It said they would arrive when we needed them most. The Dreadlords advance every cycle. They destroy our cities with weapons we cannot comprehend. They use thermal bombardment that turns our structures to slag. We have no defense because we do not understand the very concept they weaponize. Vexith's chromatophores slowly shifted from purple to a cautious orange. You are suggesting we ask these picnic enthusiasts, to teach us? I am suggesting, THRWX said carefully, that beings who have used fire so long they literally create small flames for momentary convenience might know a thing or two about thermal dynamics that could help us survive. Commander Webb felt the weight of the situation settling on his shoulders. This was supposed to be a simple first contact mission. Shake some appendages, exchange some cultural data, maybe establish a trading post. Nobody had mentioned anything about accidentally fulfilling an ancient prophecy or helping fight some kind of thermal weapon-using enemy. On the other hand, this was exactly the kind of scenario the Federation had sent them to handle. Help emerging species, establish beneficial relationships, and maybe, just maybe, punch some bullies in the face if they deserved it. Tell me about these Dreadlords, Webb said, his voice taking on the professional tone that meant he was switching from diplomat to strategist. What exactly are we dealing with? The Velkari exchanged glances. Vexith pulled out a projection device and activated it. Images flickered to life, showing massive black ships raining fire on helpless cities, Velkari fleeing from walls of flame, entire landscapes transformed into burning wastes. They came from the edge of our Sector 5 cycles ago, Vexith explained, his voice hollow. They demand submission or death. We have neither the weapons nor the understanding to fight them. They use fire as a weapon, and we can barely stand near heat sources without protective equipment. Our biology evolved on a cold world. Fire is alien to us. Terrifying. Incomprehensible. Private Morrison had gone very quiet. When he spoke, his voice had lost all its earlier casualness. Those people in the images. How many have died? Millions, THRWX said simply. Entire cities. We evacuate what we can, but they are relentless. They want to summon more fire, shrieked Plynn, her eye stalks retracting in terror. Morrison looked at Commander Webb. Boss, I know we're supposed to be explorers and all, but I didn't sign up to watch people burn. If we can help, Webb was already nodding. He'd seen enough. Lieutenant Ramirez, contact the ship. I want a full tactical assessment of those Dreadlord vessels. Kirst, start gathering data on Velkari biology and environmental tolerances. Morrison, you're going to teach a crash course in basic fire safety and thermal dynamics. If we're doing this, we're doing it right. He turned back to the stunned Velkari leaders. High Chronicler Vexith, Elder Counselor THRWX, will help. But you need to understand something. We're not gods. We're not magical. Everything we do with fire, we learned through trial, error, and a lot of burned fingers. If we're going to help you fight these Dreadlords, you're going to have to learn too. Can you handle that? Vexith's chromatophores blazed brilliant gold. The prophecy said the Fire Tamers would arrive in our darkest hour. Commander Webb, this is our darkest hour. We will learn whatever you can teach. Good, Webb said, a slight smile crossing his face. Because I have a feeling these Dreadlords are about to learn an important lesson about humans. We didn't tame fire because we're special. We tamed it because we're too stubborn to quit. And we really don't like bullies. 3 weeks after the humans arrived, the Velkari training compound looked less like a military installation and more like a very confused summer camp. Private Morrison stood before a class of 200 Velkari soldiers, holding up a standard-issue lighter with the patience of a kindergarten teacher. Okay, everyone, deep breaths. Well, not too deep because some of you are still getting used to being near heat sources without passing out. Now watch carefully. Thumb on the button, press down, spark meets gas, boom, flame. He demonstrated, and 24 Velkari flinched backward despite the protective barriers. Come on, people. It's 3 centimeters tall. My grandmother is scarier than this flame, and she's been dead for 6 years. Cadet Rixel, one of the braver students, raised a quivering appendage. Instructor Morrison, your deceased ancestor sounds terrifying. Did she also command fire? What? No, she just had this look that could make you confess to crimes you hadn't even committed yet. Morrison shook his head. Focus. The Dreadlords are coming back in 2 months according to your intelligence. That means we have 8 weeks to turn you from a species that runs from birthday candles into people who can actually fight back. Now, everyone pick up your practice lighters. The sound of 200 Velkari simultaneously whimpering was actually kind of sad. Across the compound, Lieutenant Ramirez was having better luck with the technological side of things. She stood in front of a holographic display showing thermodynamics equations, surrounded by Velkari scientists who were frantically taking notes with all available appendages. The key principle you're missing is heat dispersion, she explained, manipulating the hologram to show energy flow patterns. The Dreadlord weapons are actually pretty crude. They're just dumping massive amounts of thermal energy in concentrated bursts. It's effective against you because you have no defense and no understanding of the mechanics. But if you understand how heat moves, how it dissipates, how it can be redirected, you can defend against it. Lead scientist Kelvin's eye stalks practically vibrated with excitement. So we could create barriers that absorb and redistribute the thermal energy? Exactly. Your metallurgy is actually more advanced than ours in some ways. You just never applied it to heat management because you never needed to. But if we combine your materials science with our thermal engineering principles, we can create shielding that'll make those Dreadlord weapons about as useful as a flashlight in a supernova. A flashlight is a portable illumination device, correct? Another scientist asked. Yes. And a supernova is a stellar explosion of catastrophic proportions? Yes. So the metaphor suggests complete ineffectiveness due to overwhelming superior alternative? Ramirez grinned. Now you're getting it. That's exactly the kind of thinking we need. You folks are quick learners when you're not busy being terrified of campfires. Meanwhile, Commander Webb was dealing with the diplomatic nightmare of explaining to the Velkari High Council why arming them with flamethrowers was both ironic and absolutely necessary. Let me see if I understand correctly, Counselor Mervix said, her chromatophores flickering between confusion and horror. Your solution to our enemy using fire weapons against us is to give us fire weapons? Yes, Webb said simply. To fight fire with fire? Well, when you put it that way, it sounds much cooler than it actually is, but yes. Commander, my species has an instinctive terror of open flames. It is encoded in our very genetic structure. You are asking us to carry devices that project streams of burning liquid? Webb leaned forward. Counselor, I'm asking you to face your fear and turn it into your greatest weapon. The Dreadlords think they have an unbeatable advantage because you're afraid of fire. They're not wrong about the fear part. But here's what they don't know about humans. We were terrified of fire too, once upon a time. Absolutely petrified. You know what we did? Ran away? Mervix suggested hopefully. For a while, yes. And then one day, some crazy ancestor of ours decided to stop running. They grabbed a burning branch from a lightning strike and thought, hey, what if this scary thing could be useful? The Dreadlords are using your fear against you. We're going to teach you to use their weapon against them. And trust me, there's nothing more terrifying than prey that suddenly becomes a predator. High Chronicler Vexith, who had been silent during the exchange, suddenly spoke up. The commander is correct. The prophecy's final line, the one we could never translate properly, I have been working with the Human Linguistic Database. It does not say the Fire Tamers show no mercy. It says the Fire Tamers teach others to show no mercy. We were never meant to be rescued. We were meant to be trained. The silence in the council chamber was heavy. Then Counselor THRWX began to laugh. It was a strange, bubbling sound that the translator struggled with. Of course. The universe does not send saviors. It sends teachers. Very well, Commander Webb. Train us. Make us into the warriors the prophecy promised. 6 weeks later, Technician Kirst was putting the finishing touches on the thermal shield generators while simultaneously trying not to laugh at the scene unfolding in the training yard. The Velkari had graduated from lighters to actual controlled burns, and the transformation was remarkable. Remember, Morrison was shouting, fire needs 3 things. Fuel, heat, and oxygen. Control any one of those, you control the fire. Now, Squad 3, demonstrate the suppression technique. A group of Velkari soldiers moved in perfect coordination, using foam suppressant to contain a practice fire. They no longer flinched. They no longer panicked. They moved with purpose and precision. Beautiful. Morrison wiped away a fake tear. I'm so proud. 3 weeks ago, you people were scared of matches. Now you're running into burning buildings. Well, simulated burning buildings, but still. Cadet Rexel approached, carrying her newly issued thermal projector with surprising confidence. Instructor Morrison, I have a question about the incendiary payload modification. Shoot. If we increase the combustion accelerant by 15%, would that extend the effective range? Morrison's grin was enormous. Yes. Yes, it would. That's exactly the kind of thinking that's going to surprise those Dreadlord jerks. You see, Command? This is why I love this job. Webb had to admit, watching the Velkari evolution had been something special. They had gone from a species that could barely comprehend fire to one that was designing their own thermal weapons in under 2 months. Humans had taken 400,000 years to do the same thing. The Velkari had done it in 8 weeks. Turns out, having good teachers and a really pressing deadline worked wonders. The deadline was about to arrive. Commander, Lieutenant Ramirez called out, her voice tight. Long-range sensors just picked up multiple signatures entering the system. Configuration matches Dreadlord warships. We've got 23 vessels incoming. They'll be in orbit within 6 hours. Webb felt his stomach tighten, but he kept his voice calm. Sound the alert. Get everyone to their positions. Time to see if 8 weeks was enough. The Velkari defensive positions were nothing like they had been 2 months ago. Instead of helpless cities waiting to burn, the Dreadlords would find hardened fortifications with thermal shielding, trained soldiers with fire suppression equipment and offensive thermal weapons, and a very angry human advisement team. The Dreadlord flagship entered orbit with the same arrogance it had displayed on every previous visit. Its commander, Warlord Krozeth, opened communications with the expectation of immediate surrender. Pathetic Velkari, his translator boomed across all frequencies. We return to claim more of your worlds. Surrender your northern continent, or we shall burn it as we have burned all who defied us. Webb nodded to Vexith, who had insisted on delivering the response personally. Warlord Krozeth, Vexith said, his voice steady and his chromatophores blazing defiant gold. We have a counter-offer. Leave our system immediately, or we shall introduce you to some new friends of ours. They are called humans, and they are very enthusiastic about fire safety. There was a pause. Then Krozeth's laughter echoed through the communication channel. You have found allies? How amusing. We shall burn them alongside you. Prepare for orbital bombardment. Yeah, about that, Commander Webb cut in, switching the channel to include his ship, the UEF Prometheus. This is Commander Marcus Webb of the United Earth Federation. You are hereby ordered to cease hostile actions and withdraw from Velkari space immediately. More laughter. And if we refuse, human? Then we'll demonstrate why fire-based weapons are considered primitive by human military standards. Last chance. Krozeth's response was to open fire on the Velkari capital city. The thermal bombardment that had previously turned entire city blocks to molten slag struck the new shield generators and dispersed harmlessly across the electromagnetic barriers. The Velkari citizens, who had been evacuated to the shelters as a precaution, watched on screens as their city survived its first Dreadlord attack. Impossible. Krozeth snarled. Nope, Webb said cheerfully. Just basic physics. Now, let me show you something humans learned about 10,000 years ago. Fire is great for intimidation, but it's a terrible space weapon. You know what is a great space weapon? Magnetically accelerated projectiles traveling at 0.25% of light speed. The Prometheus fired a single warning shot that passed within 50 meters of the Dreadlord flagship, close enough that their sensors would detect the projectile's speed and calculate the kinetic energy involved. Krozeth went very quiet. That slug weighs about 200 kilograms, Webb continued conversationally. At that velocity, it hits with roughly the same energy as a 50-megaton nuclear weapon. We have 6,000 of them loaded and ready to go. Your thermal weapons are cute, but we stopped using fire as a primary weapon system about 300 years ago. We kept the fire, added some nuclear fusion, and moved on to more efficient killing methods. Now, you have 30 seconds to begin withdrawing from this system, or I start turning your fleet into abstract art. You would not dare. We are the Dreadlords. We are feared across 12 systems. We're feared, Webb corrected. Past tense. 20 seconds. Down on the planet's surface, Private Morrison was watching with the Velkari Defense Forces. Boss is in a mood today, he commented to Cadet Rexel. Your commander seems very calm for someone threatening to destroy an entire fleet, she observed. Oh, that's his scary calm. That's the voice he uses when he's already decided to shoot you and is just being polite by offering you a chance to run. 10 credits says at least 3 of those ships try to fight. I do not understand your human currency, but I accept your wager. They watched as 5 Dreadlord ships broke formation and attempted to attack the Prometheus. 5 ships, Morrison said. I was off by 2. Guess they're dumber than I thought. The Prometheus didn't even need to use its main weapons. Point defense railguns swatted the attacking ships like insects, and the rest of the Dreadlord fleet suddenly remembered they had important business elsewhere in the galaxy. Wait. Warlord Krozeth's panicked voice cut through. We withdraw. We withdraw. Excellent choice, Webb said. Oh, and Krozeth? Spread the word. The Velkari are under human protection now. Anyone who comes here looking for trouble will find more than they bargained for. And one more thing. What? The Velkari don't need us to protect them anymore. In about 6 months, they're going to have their own thermal shield technology, their own weapons, and their own defenses. So when you're telling your Dreadlord friends about today, make sure you mention that the scary humans taught the Velkari everything we know about fire. Sleep well with that thought. The Dreadlord fleet jumped to hyperspace so fast they probably left scorch marks in spacetime. 3 days later, the celebration in the Velkari capital was in full swing. The humans had introduced them to the concept of a victory barbecue, which had initially caused panic until everyone realized the fire was intentional and being used to cook food. So let me understand this, High Chronicler Vexeth said, watching Morrison flip burgers on a massive grill. You build fire, put dead animal flesh on it, consume said flesh, and consider this a celebration? Hey, don't knock it till you've tried it, Morrison said, offering him a plate. Besides, you folks are doing the same thing over there with those native hexapods you raise. Fire-grilled food is a universal constant, apparently. Vexeth tentatively consumed the offered food. His chromatophores cycled through several colors before settling on surprised pink. This is actually quite pleasant. Commander Webb stood with Counselor Thrx, overlooking the celebration. You know the hardest part about all this, he said. What? Explaining to Federation Command why we accidentally started a small war, trained an entire species in thermal warfare, and established a protectorate in under 2 months. The paperwork is going to be absolutely legendary. Thrx's eye stalks curved and what Webb had learned was a smile. Commander, the prophecy said the Fire Tamers would arrive in our darkest hour. It said nothing about them being conventional or following proper procedures. I like the way you think. Your people are going to be fine, you know. Give it a generation, and you'll be teaching other species about fire safety. Perhaps, Thrx agreed. But we will always remember that humans taught us the most important lesson. Fear is just energy waiting to be redirected. The Dreadlords gave us fire as a weapon of terror. You taught us to turn that terror into strength. That's very poetic. Did you rehearse that? Only 17 times. They both laughed. Across the compound, Cadet Rexel was showing off her thermal projector to a group of younglings, explaining the basic principles of controlled combustion with the enthusiasm of someone who had discovered fire for the first time. Which, in a way, she had. Lieutenant Ramirez approached with a datapad. Boss, you're going to love this. The Velkari Science Academy just published their first paper on advanced thermal dynamics. It's already been picked up by 3 major galactic universities. They're calling it the Webb-Vexeth Collaborative Theory of Rapid Thermal Technology Adaptation. You're going to be famous. Great, Webb said. I'll add it to my list of things that are going to make the review board have aneurysms. Right after accidentally fulfilling an ancient prophecy and teaching fire safety to a species that evolved on an ice world. Look at it this way, Morrison called over from his grill station. At least we didn't have to fight any actual dragons. The prophecy said Fire Tamers, and we showed up with camping gear and attitude. Honestly, I think we nailed it. High Chronicler Vexeth raised a ceremonial drinking vessel, filled with some kind of fermented beverage the humans had diplomatically not asked too many questions about. To the Fire Tamers, he announced loudly. Who arrived not as the warriors we expected, but as the teachers we needed. May the flames of knowledge burn eternal. To the Fire Tamers, the crowd echoed. Private Morrison raised his beer in response. And to the Velkari. May you forever remember that fire is just spicy air that got really excited, and there's nothing in the universe scarier than someone who finally stops being afraid. As the celebration continued into the night, with controlled fires burning safely in designated areas and Velkari children cautiously toasting marshmallows under human supervision, Commander Webb couldn't help but smile. They had come here to explore and make friends. Instead, they had accidentally become prophesied saviors by teaching basic fire safety. The Federation was going to have so many questions, but looking at the Velkari, no longer cowering in fear but standing proud and confident with their newfound knowledge, Webb decided that some paperwork was worth it. Besides, he had a feeling this was just the beginning. If one ancient prophecy could be accidentally fulfilled with camping equipment and attitude, who knew what other cosmic destinies were waiting for humans to stumble into them? Private Morrison finished grilling the last burger, turned off the heat with practiced ease, and grinned at the assembled crowd. You know what, folks? I think we just proved something important today. The universe might send you dragons or demons or dreadlords. But sometimes, what you really need is just someone willing to hand you a lighter and say, here, you try it. Fire's not so scary once you understand it. Now, who wants seconds? The Velkari cheered. Somewhere in the archive, the ancient prophecy glowed faintly one last time before fading, its purpose fulfilled in the most unexpected and absolutely perfect way possible. The ones who tamed fire had indeed arrived. They just happened to prefer marshmallows over mayhem and teaching over tyranny. And in the end, that made all the difference.